Kentaro recalls performing on stage for 18 years when a man with a knife suddenly appears before him. At that very moment, a girl with emerald eyes stands nearby, watching the scene tensely, as if ready to intervene at any moment. Then she rushes into battle, fighting shoulder to shoulder with the enormous beast. Her blow shakes the air, striking the monster squarely in the chest, and a memory of how she and her partner have been fighting together for 15 years now comes flooding back. The leonine creature then roared, unleashing a powerful stream of flame onto the ground. Meanwhile, the one standing before him remained calm, aware of the experience he had accumulated over years of fighting, even in the face of mortal danger. Meanwhile, a young man watches a furious battle scene, explosions lighting up the battlefield, and a girl with long ears rushes into the fray. He reflects on how he was able to perform miracles in another world, and on his 15-year career as an unknown comedian, which now seems like a distant memory. The narrative then shifts back 36 hours, where several of the cast members are backstage, chatting and preparing to go on stage. On a phone screen, the two hosts are already introducing the show, and outside the window, a nighttime city pulsing with lights can be seen. Then Tsukuman asks if they should speed things up a bit and increase the tempo. His partner, Hideki, enthusiastically agrees, confident it will give the number more energy. Afterwards, the two rehearse their expressions of surprise for the upcoming broadcast. One explains the technique, the other admits he hadn't even noticed how important it was before. In the relaxed backstage atmosphere, their conversation is filled with humor and levity. After some time, they discuss the upcoming exit, and one of them admits to being nervous. The other reassures his partner, saying that everything is ready and it's time to get started, because the moment is near. As the evening approaches before the semi-finals, two young competitors share their trepidation. One recalls the words of his late grandmother, while the other reassures him that this time they have better equipment and a much better chance of success. Afterwards, one of the guys asks Mr. Shaken to get ready for the performance and put on a suit. He responds with gratitude and promises to do everything required of him, feeling a sense of responsibility to the team. The next day, the host steps onto the stage, where a crowd of spectators has gathered, and announces the finalists. He thanks everyone for their hard work in the semi-finals, and then, with a solemn air, begins reading out the team numbers. Then the two contestants rejoice when they hear their number, 72,031, and the name of their duet, Shining Hunter. They congratulate each other, exchanging joyful glances, glistening with sweat and relief. After the announcement, Kentaro is surrounded by a crowd of fans, enthusiastically assuring him that his popularity will now skyrocket. He politely thanks everyone, feeling a wave of support and responsibility for the upcoming finale. Meanwhile, the guy with glasses suggests writing fan letters, and the dark-haired guy explains that he said it by accident while improvising on stage. The fair-haired colleague, hearing this, asks, perplexed, if the joke about nose hairs was part of the act. After their conversation, Kentaro mentally calculates that there are 18 days left until the finals. He understands that he needs to perfect every joke and bring his performance to perfection with his partner. Then he heads to the restroom, considering requesting a live diction test and a new suit. Washing his hands, he resolves that this time he will definitely prevail, no matter the obstacles. The next day, the determined contestant recalls how he reached the finals last year but stumbled. Now, walking down the hallway toward the brightly lit room, he confidently repeats that he will win, no matter what. Soon, Kentaro finds himself in a dense, mysterious forest, full of unfamiliar sounds. He looks around carefully, feeling as if he's entered an alien, perhaps magical, space where reality merges with illusion. Afterwards, he notices Lizakaya and asks if everyone else is really here. Standing among the massive roots, he feels a slight sense of confusion, trying to comprehend how he ended up here. Then someone in an unbuttoned shirt says that this isn't a dream at all, because he's already awake. The camera seems to pull back, revealing a tranquil forest, where trees and flowers sway gently in a light breeze, completing this strange sequence of events. Then the stranger fumbles in his pockets, realizing his phone is still on the table and there's no reception. He calls out cautiously in the misty thicket, trying to discern even the sound of footsteps, but all he hears in response is the rustling of leaves. Then something moves in the bushes, and the anxiety instantly returns. He freezes, peering at the movement, wondering who or what could be hiding behind the branches, until he realizes it's probably a person. Soon, Kentaro comes out into the clearing and, noticing a girl in an unusual costume, asks in surprise if it's cosplay. She, startled by his appearance, practically shouts out a question in response, who scared whom and how he even got here. The girl then hurriedly explains that normal people aren't allowed here, the place is full of enraged monsters. While she's speaking, Kentaro winces in confusion, not quite believing his own ears, and quietly asks what monsters she's talking about. After this, his companion firmly declares that she will accompany him to the city and will not accept any objections. Kentaro looks at his hands in confusion, feeling strange changes in his body, and wonders what is happening, observing her firmness. He then awkwardly mumbles that he can't perceive everything any other way, and the elf confidently replies that it's just a joke. Meanwhile, Kentaro notices the unrealistic special effects around him, thinking that perhaps it's part of a large-scale show for the finalists. At the same time, somewhere nearby, another participant wonders if Tsukuman has fallen into the trap as well. His comrade advises him to remain calm and act as if everything is going according to plan, as the complex surprise plan is already in place and any unnecessary move could ruin it. After this, the girl asks the name of her new acquaintance. He belatedly realizes with regret that he missed the chance to introduce himself, but then cautiously states his name, Hideki Garland, from the Shining Hunter team. She nods, mentioning her partner. Soon, Kentaro and Celeste look up and see a massive creature emerge from the shadows. A monstrous chimera with a lion's head, a goat's snout, and a snake's tail stands before them, blocking their path in the middle of the forest. Then Celeste and Kentaro are amazed at how expensive the decorations look, and Miria frowns, warning of danger. At that very moment, the monster opens its mouth, preparing to attack. After this, there's a thunderous explosion, a flash illuminates the space, and the lion lets out a piercing roar. One of the participants loses his composure and, in a panic, screams that it's real flames, desperately trying to defend himself from the attacking beast. Miria then lunges forward and slams her foot into the monster. She firmly orders Garland not to interfere and to retreat, and he, stunned, doesn't have time to comprehend how she managed to attack so quickly. Meanwhile, Luna asks in bewilderment how all of this could be a joke. Celeste and Kentaro exchange glances, nervously wondering if this has become more real than it initially seemed. After this, smoke rises above the mountains in the distance, and Miria, dagger in hand, flies into the air. She hesitantly cries out that she doesn't understand what's happening, and the man standing nearby merely watches, realizing how strange this conversation and the entire experience is. At that moment, Miria hangs in midair with the knife, hesitating, as if unsure how to move on after what she's seen. The man next to her quietly admits he doesn't understand such conversations, everything happening seems alien and incomprehensible to him. Miria then lunges at the roaring monster, while the other two take a defensive stance. She delivers a precise blow, deeply wounding the creature, demonstrating a rare combination of determination and flexibility in combat. After his victory, Kentaro, breathing heavily and wiping away sweat, recounts how the monster suddenly chased him. Miria, beaming with confidence, replies that it's actually for the best, the creature is still young, meaning it wasn't as dangerous, and asks if he's injured. She then explains that they are in a forbidden forest in the north of the Shurjima kingdom, in the land of Surulfrad. Kentaro cautiously asks where exactly they are, and she nonchalantly replies that she ate well today and is therefore full of energy. After this, the girl excitedly announces that she's defeated the chimera and asks about the camera. Kentaro, perplexed, asks what Japan is, and she, frowning, searches for the device. Gradually, he realizes they're clearly not on Earth. Then Kentaro cries out in despair that this is another world. Celeste listens calmly as he begs to be returned to Japan, claiming it's his last chance. The others just exchange glances, unsure what to make of his insane words. Then she realizes with surprise that her body hasn't changed since the transmigration, her skin, her hands, everything remains human. A fleeting question crosses her mind: why didn't she become a slug or some other creature, as in the stories of reincarnation? At the same time, anxiety grows within her, she needs to return home quickly. After this, the girl insistently asks someone to remain calm, but a nearby voice replies that there is no choice, they must survive, even if their strength hasn't increased. The narrative then shifts to a vast, green landscape, where another voice is amazed to note how much life has changed since they became finalists. Then she quietly asks him if everything is okay, and he apologizes for yelling and explains that he's calmed down after being scolded for using excessively strange language. Gradually, a rapport develops between them. He finally admits with relief that everything is fine and thanks his companion for her support. She suggests heading to the city, as it's safer there, but despite her confidence, he doubts he can truly trust this unexpected ally. After this, the girl reveals her name, Yuto, and asks if Garland is also a member of Shining Hunter. The man listens silently, amazed by how calmly she speaks of such incredible things. He then asks if this means they're both on the same team, and the woman raises her eyebrows in surprise. At that moment, another warrior sharply shouts out that prey is making too much noise nearby, simultaneously pointing her weapon toward the bushes. Meanwhile, a cloaked figure mockingly asks if the people of Shirjima are truly so good-natured and carefree. A man and a girl with twin tails listen warily as the stranger warns them that they have trespassed too openly into foreign territory. After this, the hooded traveler coldly remarks that he wouldn't mind taking their lives, as his journey has been long and arduous. The axe-wielding girl sharply asks if he's from the lands of Yugusawa, and her companion quickly apologizes, not having time to explain the situation. Soon the man exclaims that there are now 3 of them, and immediately the woman rushes forward with a sword. The cloaked man calmly says that even if it's an illusion, it's meaningless if it can't be recognized, but the opponent confidently replies that it's not an optical illusion at all. Celeste then immediately attacks, her blade slicing through the air. However, her opponent calmly intercepts the movement and declares her efforts futile, preparing to strike back. Then she realizes she must attack the real body, avoiding the streams of flame flying around her. Meanwhile, the boy standing nearby panics and becomes disoriented, unable to figure out what to do in the rapidly unfolding chaos. The cloaked man mockingly tells the man with the knife that he lacks the strength to fight. He grips the hilt until his knuckles turn white, and someone nearby commands him to open his eyes and finally see the truth. Then a tense voice warns him not to rush, for as soon as the young warrior falls, it will be his turn next. At that moment, the woman rushes forward, while the other man remains standing, resolutely gazing at the storm unfolding before them. Meanwhile, the determined girl firmly declares that she must return, she has no right to die in an alien world. The man standing next to her, drenched in sweat, recalls their final duel and quietly repeats that he, too, cannot allow himself to die. After a brief pause, one character tells the other that he'll understand everything in time. The other character pensively notes that Hideki didn't laugh at the joke, and only now realizes he'd never noticed it before. Then the 2 men laugh heartily at the ridiculous joke about the long nose, and the caped man standing nearby watches them, holding back the tension and closely watching every movement. After this, one of the fighters panicked and pointed his hand, shouting that Yuto was the main body. Footsteps and shouts could be heard in the background as the other 2 rushed forward through the clouds of smoke and chaos. The next moment, the girl, with a battle cry, slams into her opponent, raising her sword and striking him on the head. From behind the bushes, another cloaked figure watches the fight, as if assessing its outcome. Then the red-haired boy exclaims in surprise, asking how the other one figured it out. The dark-haired one calmly replies that the blow landed right on target, since only one of the 3 had flared his nostrils when breathing, and that's what gave away the enemy. After this, the confident man explains that he's not a fighter himself and avoids direct combat, but he's an observer. He finds people's weaknesses by analyzing their movements and words, and the other man, shocked by his reasoning, anxiously asks who he really is. Then Kentaro passionately declares that he's a comedian, adding with irritation that his interlocutor is simply a fool. Miria, unable to contain her curiosity, eagerly asks what it means to be a comedian, as the very concept seems mysterious and intriguing to her. After this, the cloaked man activates a glowing portal, declaring that circumstances have unfolded unfavorably, but he eagerly awaits their next meeting. The determined girl rushes toward him, demanding that he wait, but a magical vortex is already drawing him in. Then the twin-tailed woman remarks that the enemy likely escaped with a teleportation spell. She praises Garland for anticipating the battle's course, and he breathes a sigh of relief after facing the strongest sorcerer from Yugusawa. After this, the girl takes out a vial of shimmering liquid and shows it to her comrade. He anxiously asks if she's in danger, but she replies with a slight smile that everything is under control and pours a few drops into her palm. She then asks if he's hurt, and Kentaro looks at the liquid doubtfully, wondering if it's a healing potion. The girl confirms that it is, adding that she wants to ask him for a favor, which elicits genuine surprise. After a brief pause, Kentaro finally asks for an explanation of this world, admitting he understands almost nothing. Luna, frowning, says she doesn't fully understand what's going on herself, and Kentaro tries to explain his thoughts more simply, realizing he likely came from another dimension. Then, astonished, she asks if this is true, and receives an affirmative answer. A nearby participant confidently clarifies the details, inquiring about his connection to the Shining Hunter organization and the continent called Sedima. Afterwards, they explain that the world is called Gerofrad and consists of 3 great continents. They are currently on Shirjima, a land of delicious food and majestic castles, where life teems daily. Kentaro only awkwardly apologizes, admitting he's having a hard time comprehending everything. The conversation then turns to other continents, Aosora and Yogava, about which disturbing rumors are circulating. The heroes discuss how the king seeks to seize their riches, as dangerous monsters inhabit them and a never-ending struggle for survival rages. After this, the companion explains that even the mage they fought is a native of these lands. Kentaro, with a nervous chuckle, admits that he really has found himself in another world. The girl, however, smiles happily and calls him a genius alien. Kentaro then asks what it means to be a shining hunter. He is told that it's not a title, but a species of being, and that most of the inhabitants of the Shirjima continent belong to this race. After this, he admits that he must return home, as he cannot stay here. One of the men remarks that the Shining Hunter race is unfamiliar with such transitions between worlds, and the girl asks what he intends to do next. Then Kentaro explains that this is his last year, and his voice becomes quieter. The girl repeats the words almost in a whisper, as if sensing the hidden meaning behind his confession. Afterwards, she asks if it's a curse, and he confirms that it might be. Kentaro urges her to return as soon as possible, but she admits she doesn't know how to leave this parallel world. Then he says they can't stand still, they need to move forward. Celeste explains that beyond the forest lies the central Shining Castle, where a wise king might know how to help them return. After this, Kentaro thanks his companion for accompanying him, despite the fact that the matter doesn't directly concern her. She enthusiastically replies that she will lead him further, since they are of the same race, and he mentally decides that for her sake he absolutely must return home. Meanwhile, passing through the thicket, the red-haired companion cautiously asks if there are any dangerous plants in this area. The guy replies that the flora here is unusual, as if in a mirrored version of a familiar world. After this, Luna warns about the deadly poisonous fly agaric and goes first. Kentaro follows her cautiously, noticing that the monsters here are wild, but the plants are not so dangerous until suddenly, huge mushrooms come to life and entwine him with their roots. Then Garland cheerfully greets someone from afar, which leaves the girl confused. She screams his name in disbelief. Another participant worriedly asks if everything is okay, and Garland confidently replies that everything is under control. After this, the girl looks in horror at the man with a cold compress on his forehead. He loudly asks what's going on, to which she angrily calls him a parasite, causing silent surprise among everyone present. Then Azrin gloomily warns that if the fungi continue to grow on the body, they will suck out all the nutrients and lead to death, turning the person into a wandering mushroom. The man chuckles nervously, asking not to say such terrifying things, trying to hide his fear with humor. Afterwards, someone suddenly collapses in a small clearing, causing panic among those present. The girl watches him anxiously, and the boy standing nearby tensely declares that this is an extremely bad sign. Then the girl, running away, hastily apologizes to Garland and begs him not to abandon her. He himself remains trapped in the roots, motionless and numb with terror, unable to escape the plant trap. Afterwards, the thought flashes through Garland's mind that this might be his end, and it's all happening too quickly. He looks up at the dark sky through the tangled branches and thinks bitterly that he would rather die in Japan than here, among alien worlds. Meanwhile, somewhere in another location, a man with a headset thanks the stunt doubles for their participation and suggests they conduct the simulation according to the script. The other participants stand at a distance, exchanging confused and thoughtful glances. Afterwards, 4 boys stand barefoot on a shaky bridge over the water. One of them loudly urges the others to hold on tight and not fall, as this ordeal tests their endurance and spirit. The group then finds themselves on a narrow platform above the water, and a warning sounds, whoever falls first will be punished with a blast of hot water. A moment later, the platform begins to vibrate, eliciting cries of mixed terror and delight. Kentaro hurriedly asks everyone not to swing, as it could be dangerous. The other two react with fear, one screams that he's about to fall, and the other insists it's too scary, but it's too late to stop. After this, 3 boys jump into the pool with a squeal, immediately shouting that the water is scalding hot. One of them desperately cries out that it's over as they flounder in the boiling foam, spray flying in all directions. Then the man with the headphones announces a short break to check the cameras. He thanks everyone for their participation and then pauses the broadcast, giving the team a few minutes of rest. Afterwards, the 2 participants sit on the tatami, discussing the challenge. One says the exercise was harder than expected and praises Tsukuman for his quick reaction. The other admits he gave it his all, despite feeling irritated and tired inside. Meanwhile, the 2 laugh, recalling how strange everything seemed at the end of the simulation. Nearby, a man and woman sit on the floor, discussing the hot water joke and whether to weave it into a future performance for the audience. Afterwards, the 2 are still laughing, agreeing that despite the chaos, it was all funny. Meanwhile, a woman's scream is heard underwater, calling for Garland and Lano's help. Miria, in a panic, shakes Garland, trying to bring him back to his senses, pressing a strange vial of antidote to his lips. She quickly apologizes, explaining that she's late, having been searching for a cure for the fungal infection all this time. She then crushes the Gokuraxo herb, adds the sand frog spawn, and takes out the Sadoko centipede's head, thinking that if she mixes all of this with the healing potion, she will get a rather strong medicine. Afterwards, Miria urges Garland to drink the prepared medicine, calling it devil's spit. He struggles to bring the vessel to his lips, wincing at the stench, but thanks her for her efforts before taking a sip. Then the girl apologizes, saying that the potion's taste and smell are truly awful. Kentaro, unable to bear it, spits and looks at her with shock and disgust, as if he'd tasted pure poison. Afterwards, the girl desperately orders Garland to finish the rest, claiming it's better to swallow it than turn into a walking mushroom. He's shaking, sweating profusely, but hesitating, unable to bring himself to take the last sip. Meanwhile, the group gathers around the table, where one man looks particularly nervous. Someone loudly announces the beginning of the ordeal and challenges Mr. Garland Hideki to go first, in full view of everyone. Then Kentaro is told to keep quiet, and one of the men praises him for his courage in accepting his punishment as an acting award. The crowd freezes in anticipation, and he, swallowing nervously, agrees to drink the strange potion live on air. Then a group of young men cheerfully cheer one of them as he decisively downs the drink. The others enthusiastically shout that he can do it, and one of the onlookers laughs loudly, clearly enjoying the moment. After this, the man bursts into laughter, calling the punishment well-deserved and absurdly funny. Meanwhile, another character, covered in sweat, stares motionless at a strange eye-like object, as if unable to believe his own eyes. Meanwhile, the panicked girl encourages the mushroom-covered man, begging him not to give up. He, breathing heavily, replies that he can't die here, as he's a final-year student, and then resolutely drinks the potion down. Afterwards, the girl watches in awe as he staggers backward, dropping several round objects. The man lets out a loud groan, and a murmur of confused voices erupts around him. Then he twitches convulsively, and the other 2 bounce off the spheres rolling along the ground. The girl with the pointed ears notices with alarm that the mushroom growths are beginning to disappear, and breathes a sigh of relief. Kentaro lies on the ground, breathing heavily and wiping sweat from his forehead. He grins weakly, thinking that if this is considered punishment, then perhaps he can endure even worse. Afterwards, the satisfied girl tells Garland that everything is fine now. Meanwhile, another man addresses Tsukuman, who lies exhausted, wincing and asking if it was even remotely pleasant, looking at her doubtfully. Then she cheerfully replies that it's all over and asks if he's drunk the devil's spit. He admits he's exhausted from healing the mushroom, and then remarks that they're almost out of the forest. Afterwards, he nervously admits that he doesn't know how many times he would have died without her help. The girl, jumping off the huge beast, smiles, and he remains lying on the ground, feeling the weight of fatigue. A few hours later, they reach the city of Twelve. The girl suggests they take a rest here, as the castle is still a long way off, and the local inns are renowned for their cleanliness and comfort. Miria then joyfully announces her return, and the residents greet her with relief and curiosity. They all eagerly ask what monster Yuto managed to defeat this time, filling the street with a vibrant buzz. After this, one of the men asks in surprise if everyone here knows each other. The woman replies with a smile that she always stops in this town before going into the forest, because the locals have become her friends, and the others happily express their gratitude for her visit. The girl then enthusiastically tells the assembled group that standing next to her is Garland, the shining hunter from another world, whom she found lost. The man calmly introduces himself, Hideki Garland. Afterwards, Kentaro awkwardly admits that he seems to be the only one wearing the strange outfit, sparking a wave of surprise and curiosity. Miria, beaming, adds that he drank the devil's spit, causing everyone to be shocked. One of the villagers says he's long dreamed of seeing someone dare to drink this potion. The crowd begins to whisper excitedly, turning to Yuto and exchanging glances of delight and disbelief. Then the girl, unabashedly excited, raises the bottle, and the sweaty man standing next to her complains that she doesn't even offer him moral support. He takes a deep sip, drawing a storm of applause, then looks at her resignedly, feeling a strange calm. Soon the crowd falls silent, watching as the man slams violently into a stone wall. Some are amazed at his resilience, others express joy for Garland, who, stunned, doesn't fully understand what happened. Kentaro looks confused, surrounded by smiling villagers. Luna warmly remarks that he's finally gotten to know the locals well now, and the atmosphere around him fills with friendly laughter. The scene then shifts to a barter shop, where an energetic man with an eye patch greets Yuto, asking what he brought today. An off-screen voice clarifies that the item is unusual, adding that talent always helps one survive. After this, Kentaro asks where they are. The woman explains that it's a pawn shop where materials obtained from monsters are exchanged for money, and another person adds that the process is strictly controlled to prevent counterfeiting. Then Celeste joyfully recognizes the object she holds, and Azrin carefully examines the horn he found, noting that it's in excellent condition. The other two watch the exchange with interest, appreciating the value of the find. Afterwards, the man with the eye patch grumbles irritably about some parasite, while the two nearby cheer, happy to have brought him back. The tired companion quietly asks if anyone is hungry, and the cheerful girl suggests they go get something to eat, despite his reluctant expression. Then one woman greets Yuto at the entrance, noticing his severe injuries, and the other gestures for him to enter. Yuto bows politely and thanks both for their hospitality, trying to stand up straight despite his fatigue. Afterwards, the young man asks where they are, and the woman confirms that he is with his companion. She explains that their workshop uses magic to restore clients' favorite outfits to their pristine condition. Meanwhile, another woman informs the man that unpleasant rumors are circulating around town about Yuto, who allegedly brought someone from another world with devil's drool. A man standing nearby examines the fabric of an old suit, pondering its significance and the memories associated with it. Then he recalls how the finalists were announced while they were still in their costumes, and then everyone went off to celebrate. The man agrees that this is true and asks for the outfit to be carefully repaired, as it's special to him. Afterwards, the woman cheerfully calls Garland and suggests they have a meal together as soon as the clothes are repaired. Someone present recommends a nearby restaurant where the artisans are highly respected and often offer free meals. Meanwhile, Kentaro anxiously wonders if it's shameful to be naked here, as he's unsure if such concepts exist in this world. The girl, laughing, asks him to calm down and wait until she finishes bathing. Then Kentaro sits at a table in a noisy tavern, wearily explaining how he's been working hard today and is now starving. At the next table, a woman devours her food with gusto, oblivious to his puzzled gaze. At the bar, a woman reminds Hans to enjoy his food, as food is also a joy in life. He smiles and notes that the taste is remarkably similar to the dishes from his former world, and she warmly wishes him well. In a cozy cafe, a man asks if his interlocutor is truly the wanderer from another world known as Devil's Blue Spit. The young man confirms this, and a girl next to him gently corrects him, clarifying that the title was used incorrectly. Then one of the men jokingly says that he once drank the devil's saliva and attained the slime of a fallen angel, to which the woman reminds him of his earlier remarks about monstrous artifacts. Another participant laughingly adds that something entirely different is probably at play here. At this point, Miria excitedly announces that she's heading to the House of Magic, much to the surprise of two people standing nearby. Another woman turns to Yuto and asks if he'll be staying at the Dwellin tonight. Afterwards, the group discusses how the magic of this place is astounding and protected by the Magic Brigade. They are told that the House of Magic serves as the headquarters of this brigade, which governs the city, and one of the men remarks that they should report on the battle where Garland helped repel an attack. Miria then invites Garland to join her, hoping that in the House of Magic he will find a way to return home. They decide to go there together, full of determination and cautious optimism. Sometime later, two girls call out to a man named Zakito as he enters a building guarded by two guards. One of them watches the man standing outside in admiration, struck by his imposing appearance. Zakito, the head of 12's Magic Brigade, greets Yuto warmly, informing him that he heard from the guards about his arrival. Yuto, a little embarrassed, recalls recent events and how everyone started talking about Devil's Spit. After this, the man turns to Garland Ono and then informs Yuto that a new report has arrived from the guards. Someone from Yagusawa has appeared in the forest. The girl with the pointy ears confirms the information, looking at him warily. In the formal hall, a man expresses gratitude to Garland Dono for his cooperation, and a woman announces that the matter will now be in the hands of their magic team. Another adds that Garland has arrived on the Shirjima continent from his homeworld, sparking a lively discussion. Then Kentaro apologizes and admits that, despite all his knowledge and books, he's never come across a single mention of methods for interdimensional transition. Ryu stands nearby, listening attentively, without interrupting, trying to process what's being said. Then one of the men explains that the royal library of the central castle contains books incomparable to those here. Perhaps it is there that information can be found that matches Garland Dono's expectations and sheds light on the mystery of his arrival. Afterwards, they discuss the route to the castle, and someone clarifies that Yuto will be joining them as a guide. The man wishes them all a safe journey, and Yuto quietly thanks him, feeling a sense of responsibility for the upcoming journey. Meanwhile, Volcano sits with a serious expression, and the others ask what happened, mentioning that they heard him talking from the other side of the door. They turn to Garlando, expecting an explanation. Vulcan then hesitantly asks to join him on the journey, but the blonde man sharply asks if he understands the potential consequences of this decision. The third participant glances between them in surprise, sensing the tension. The dark-haired man asks to clarify his position, and the blonde explains that Vulcan is the most inexperienced mage in their group. The third man silently lowers his gaze, realizing the risk of taking a newcomer on such a journey. Then someone asks how much they have to do and what Garland will gain by taking him along. The young man passionately declares that he wants to go for the experience and knowledge, despite the danger, but is interrupted, called a fool for his recklessness. After this, the fair-haired man abruptly declares that selfish pursuits for self-improvement are unacceptable, especially when it comes to missions. The dark-haired youth listens, sweating profusely, unable to utter a word of objection. Then one of the men present apologizes hesitantly, feeling guilty, while a woman stands behind him, watching silently. Then another man apologizes for the inconvenience, and finally, in the quiet room, a third bows his head, deeply apologizing to the two seated figures. The conversation then turns to Yuto. Someone asks if he's really as bad as people say. One responds that Yuto is currently resting at a hotel and doesn't drink alcohol, while another remarks that he's already settled in quite well thanks to that devil's drool. They then discuss how the young man trains diligently every day despite his weakness. They all agree they can't say they don't know how to use magic, but they acknowledge his perseverance is commendable. Kentaro, cup in hand, tells someone not to give up, because it's hard when effort goes unrewarded. The other person sheepishly replies that he's simply ashamed of his own failures and looks away. Afterwards, two men in suits discuss the joke. One questions its quality, while the other admits it's funny and useful, though it still leaves a feeling of dissatisfaction. Then the man in the cap suddenly announces that they've decided to disband the duo, surprising the others. The two members exchange brief farewells, and one explains that he only came today to say goodbye. After this, the two stare at each other, dumbfounded, unable to believe what they've just heard. One explains that they and their partner discussed everything the day before and made a decision, but the other counters that this is going too far and that everything can be fixed if they want to. Then the man in the cap asks if his friend is really quitting comedy. The man in the suit calmly replies that he's quitting, but not because of his partner, it's simply time to stop. Afterwards, the two discuss whether to help a seemingly confused passerby. A close-up shows one of them deep in thought, trying to make sense of what's going on around them. Under the moonlit sky, a young man anxiously wonders if the House of Magic is close and where the inn is. Nearby, two townspeople discuss the hardships of working without recognition for their efforts. Soon, the young man is swinging a wooden bat with vigor, trying to complete his training. The other man watches with concern, noting that despite his efforts, not even the slightest glimmer of fire appears. The young man then asks if his companion trains every day. He admits he's still inexperienced, having been mentored by his father. The first man clarifies that he was talking about his own father, and they both smile, sensing a connection. Afterwards, he proudly explains that his father is the captain of the city's magic team and a true master of his craft. Then, sheepishly, he admits he panicked a bit, apologizing for his tardiness and lack of confidence. Then the man explains to the boy that, although he hasn't made any noticeable progress in magic for a long time, he still remembers the day of his first success. At that moment, he felt true happiness, as he dreamed of becoming like his father and one day joining the city's magic team. Afterwards, the man is shocked to learn that the boy has been doing this daily for 5 years. He calmly explains that, despite not having any magician's certificates, he still joined the team and isn't seeing any results, despite trying hard every day. Then the boy confidently brandishes his shining sword, firmly declaring that he will become a mage like his father and will not give up, no matter what. A man watches from afar, holding back a smile, proud of his tenacity. Soon, one of the young men hesitantly admits that he is not who he wanted to be. The second, clutching his sword, anxiously asks if this is truly true, but the first remains silent, gazing at the starry sky. The man then walks down the cobblestone street, looking around and asking where the inn is. He soon happily remarks that the day has gone wonderfully, as he's had time to drink and enjoy his time. Afterwards, he notices that the road ahead has become dark, even though just recently the moon had brightly illuminated the path. Then he becomes uneasy, the air becomes heavy, and he senses a thunderstorm approaching. Suddenly, a giant stone golem appears before him, and the man retreats in horror, screaming that it's a monster. The creature's glowing eyes heighten the tension, turning the street into an arena of terror. Then he screams that it's a monster, and panic breaks out all around. People start calling out to each other in fear and running, while a massive chunk of rock crashes down behind them with a loud roar. The crowd freezes in confusion as two enormous golems appear on the street. People retreat, muttering among themselves, unsure of what's happening, as if the city had suddenly turned into a battlefield. The young man, narrowly avoiding a collision with the armored creature, bursts into a scream, calling this place a nightmare. He heaves a shuddering sigh of relief, realizing he miraculously survived the collapse of the pavement. After this, one of the men warns them not to move, as the situation is extremely dangerous. Another calls out for Mr. Yupoko and Mrs. Henji, and a third looks up in surprise at hearing someone referred to as a man from another world. Then someone anxiously asks what this armored giant is. Another replies that he's never seen such a huge monster, adding that even from the forest, such a creature would be visible for miles. The man notes that monsters appearing in the city are rare, but these are clearly extremely dangerous. The crowd watches tensely as a magical team, specially created for such situations, arrives at the scene. Soon, a group of cloaked mages emerges into the street, confronting a massive mechanical enemy. At their head, a confident man with a staff, his eyes blazing with determination. A colossal metal creature roars as a man with tousled hair stands before it. 3 onlookers watch in awe, amazed by the scale of the battle. Then Azrin makes sure everyone is ready and asks the blonde man's opinion on the golem's origins. He replies that the creature clearly isn't from the forest and is likely related to the mage mentioned earlier. Azrin then raises his hand and calls for everyone to unite for the attack. A man loudly orders the soldiers to form up in battle formation and prepare for attack. Armored soldiers advance, and cloaked figures simultaneously raise their weapons, preparing for battle with unwavering determination. Then Azrin gives the order to attack and raises his staff, concentrating his energy. Following him, two mages cast a spell. A flaming serpent springs from the air, rushing toward the enemy. In response, the monster unleashes a devastating blow, and a powerful explosion destroys part of the building, illuminating the street with fiery light. Witnesses to the scene scream and marvel at the scene, unable to tear their eyes away from the destruction. A massive armored golem emerges from a cloud of smoke. One of the commanders orders a frontal assault with magical cannons, while two observers watch in shock while another calls the second and third squads into battle. Then Azrin casts a powerful spell called Thunder Spear. A blinding beam of lightning erupts from his staff, and the others, mesmerized by the spectacle, exclaim that it's time to destroy the target, overwhelmed by the majesty of the magical flame. After this, Azrin solemnly raises his staff, declaring that the preparatory steps are complete. One of the men standing nearby reacts with astonishment, unable to believe how quickly and smoothly everything went. Azrin then swings his staff with all his might, and at that moment, a powerful stream of energy erupts from it. The explosion covers the square, and the shockwave rolls through the streets, causing the earth to tremble and blinding those watching. Kentaro and the man are relieved to see their shop is still standing. His companion enthusiastically comments that the magic team has long been famous in these parts, while Kentaro quietly reflects that all this initial fuss was just a way to buy time. After this, one of the commanders joyfully announces the start of the mission, explaining that everyone must now begin collecting and studying the monster's remains. The others listen attentively, preparing for the next steps. Then someone shouts angrily, calling the other person an idiot, and doesn't believe what they've heard. At that moment, a massive armored figure suddenly attacks, causing people to scream in pain and shock. Two men are stunned by the monster's resilience while two cloaked mages prepare their spells. But one of them is warned not to use magic, as the stonework is already crumbling around them. After this, Azrin abruptly orders them not to expend magical energy unnecessarily and to focus on distracting the enemy, helping the injured, and evacuating residents. The two mages simultaneously agree. Then part of the group ends up under the rubble, and one of the fighters calls out to the golem, checking to see if everyone is alive. Meanwhile, the others watch as the monster remains unharmed, wondering why no spell seems to harm it. The man looks around anxiously, and the woman insistently calls for everyone to leave the dangerous area immediately. At that very moment, a figure bursts out from around the corner, racing down the narrow street, raising a cloud of dust. Azrin leaps straight toward the fiery, armored foe, eliciting cries of surprise and delight from the onlookers. With a smile and confidence, she declares that she has finally arrived, ready to engage in battle. Off to the side, a man looks curiously at a small mechanical robot, and a girl guiltily admits she's late because she fell asleep. Someone nearby chuckles, calling this a perfectly typical excuse for her. Then one of the fighters warns Yuto and the others that they need to retreat immediately. Yuto hesitates, thinking the fight is too fierce to simply run away. Meanwhile, the girl notices Garland and admiringly remarks on his resilience, and Yuto stammers, turning to him for advice. After this, the man explains that the creature is immune to magic, confirming that even Yuto's spells have no effect. The other participant listens anxiously, trying to comprehend the situation. The mages argue that even their most powerful spells are incapable of burning or cutting the monster, but after so many blows, it should at least have weakened. Yet the monster continues to stand, as if made of living metal. The armored man then reminds him that Yuto's previous knife strike left only minor scratches. He suggests that the creature's material or coating is blocking any magic, causing all spells to be suspended. Azrin explains that such enemies can only be defeated with powerful physical attacks, but no one here, not even Yuto, is strong enough. Kentaro worriedly asks what to do next, and Azrin replies that the only option is to evacuate the residents and call for reinforcements. Afterwards, the dark-haired man reassures the others, assuring them that no one will blame them for retreating. The fair-haired commander adds that the Magic Brigade's job is to protect the citizens, even at the cost of temporary failure. Then the young man proudly explains that his father leads the city's Magic Brigade, and he dreams of becoming a mage like him. The second man listens in surprise, and the third clarifies that Volcano is currently only listed as an assistant with no combat rank. After this, the girl hurriedly turns to Yuto, saying that only he can quickly bring Volcano. Yuto shouts back an order, "Bring him here immediately, before the situation gets completely out of control." Kentaro then confidently declares that he'll save time, to which Miria raises her eyebrows in surprise. Then, with a wide smile, she leaps onto the roof and dashes forward, loudly confirming that she trusts him and is completely on board with the plan. Afterwards, one of the men asks Garland Dano why he brought Volcano. The other explains that he has potential, but immediately adds that even with his talent, his chances of success are minimal, as Volcano is still too inexperienced. Then Kentaro grins and says he's capable of drinking the devil's spit, adding that the last year has been the hardest test of his life. His words sound defiant, but behind them, one senses determination and pride. The man then recalls the events of last year, when the girl desperately screamed at the boy to run from the approaching armored colossus. She tugged at his hand, begging him to save himself, but he hesitated, disbelieving his eyes, looking back at the monster. At that moment, Kentaro furiously shouts that he will never run away and sharply dodges as a massive figure descends right in front of him. He dives to the side, blocking the monster's path and preparing for a counterattack. Afterwards, the man races down a narrow alley, explosions thundering behind him. The wall behind him collapses, scattering stones and dust, and he, drenched in sweat, screams in terror, realizing that death is literally breathing down his neck. Then Kentaro turned around in panic and saw the monster crash through the wall, emerging from a cloud of smoke. He screamed in shock, then angrily shouted that someone would definitely die today, throwing himself to the side. The man barely avoids falling debris, breathing heavily and wiping away sweat. He admits to himself that he overestimated his own speed and strength, thinking he could outrun the danger, but he realized he was a hair's breadth from death. A huge mechanical creature roars and stomps near the building, shaking the ground. One of the soldiers, realizing the threat, rushes into the forest, followed by a muffled roar. The monster is chasing after him with alarming speed. Then Kentaro trips and falls with a scream, complaining that he just wanted to participate in his survival game. He manages to roll away just as the mechanical opponent lands a powerful blow nearby, and he yells out a curse in frustration. At this point, the man turns to Mr. Zakito, explaining that magic isn't working, but the wind flow can restrict the enemy's movements. He urges immediate action, and the man standing nearby enthusiastically thanks him for the tip. Then one of the cloaked mages flies back and crashes into the wall with a dull thud, screaming in pain. The second, standing nearby, turns around, eyes wide, at the monster's loud roar, realizing just how powerful it is. At that moment, two girls descend from the sky, landing in front of the confused man, who looks up in amazement. A giant golem looms in the distance, and off-screen, someone impatiently asks Yuto when their turn will begin. The girl with long ponytails apologizes to Garland for the wait and lands next to the kneeling young warrior. Another man watches them, assessing their synchronicity and speed. Then the girl and two young men call out to Yuto and Volcano, surprised by their appearance. One of the men, covered in sweat, joyfully exclaims that it is Garland Dano himself, causing a roar of approval from the crowd. A young fighter asks his father if he's hurt, and the man replies that the wound is minor, but the monster is immune to magic. Meanwhile, another man shouts the fighters' names, wondering why they're here instead of in the safe zone. Kentaro then encourages Ryu, ordering him to attack, but he hesitates, insisting that his magic is powerless against such a foe. Kentaro, however, firmly declares that everything will be fine and pushes him forward, full of confidence. A man with black hair and an intense gaze turns to Volcano and says passionately, "You are," but his sentence is cut off by another roar as the monster strikes nearby. Meanwhile, two men are sitting at a table, discussing the plot. One notes that the audience hasn't fully understood the story, while the other suggests changing the narrative right in this scene to make it more powerful. After this, the two men continue to talk about the technical details of the production, and at that moment a third man enters the room, smiling and waving, as if unaware of the chaos that has erupted outside the walls. Three men sit at a table, discussing an upcoming live show and filming. One enthusiastically declares he's tried almost every type of Tokyo ramen, while the other admits he's recently become obsessed with reading food reviews and is now dreaming of a food tour. Then Kentaro reveals he recently came up with a new comedy routine. The others discuss Shaken's appearance on today's show and note with regret that the audience's reaction was rather lukewarm, deciding to go to a new popular venue together next time.
After this, the two men begin arguing about roles, and one suggests switching places, let him play the Tsukomi and let his partner take on the role of Boke. The other is astonished by the proposal, not believing he's serious.
The conversation then turns to a debate about the fairness of the roles. One insists that the current format is flawed and illogical, while the other counters that success can't be measured by a template, since the audience laughs exactly the way they want it to. Soon, the three men are having a serious conversation in a room. One shares his experience, admitting that he finally understands what he wants and what he's capable of, while the other notes that reality sometimes turns out to be completely different from expectations.
Afterwards, the two young participants discuss Hideki's confidence as a Tsukomi and whether Tsukuman would like to try his hand at Boka. One of them enthusiastically confirms that this is exactly what he wanted.
Then the other person nods, saying he understands, but reminds them they've been working together for 2 years. He adds that, despite their mutual enjoyment of the performances, it's as if the connection between them and the audience is being lost. Meanwhile, on stage, the man explains that the success of his food videos stems from the contrast between the audience's expectations and the content of the videos. He admits that he always dreamed of performing in the manzai genre to become truly famous. Afterwards, two colleagues discuss how one of them realized his talents and now helps others discover them. The other smiles and remarks that his reactions have only become more expressive and funnier over the years. Then someone abruptly tells Volcano that he's not a mage at all, but a warrior, causing him genuine confusion and bewilderment. His eyes widen, as if the words have shattered his previous convictions. Kentaro addresses Ryu with the same fervor, insisting he is a warrior, not a sorcerer. Ryu is stunned, and the two watching them watch the sudden scene with curiosity and surprise. Afterward, Kentaro recalls watching Volcano train, the air vibrating with every swing of his sword. He realized then that his endless magical training had perhaps unwittingly developed incredible physical strength in him. The young man reflects that his 5 years of daily training are finally paying off. He feels his strength growing with each passing day. One of his mentors respectfully acknowledges that the boy is rightfully worthy of being the son of the head of a magic team. After a brief pause, the young man admits that perhaps he didn't want to notice the difference between his desires and his abilities. He quietly adds that, no matter how hard he tries, he's not like his father. Then the two comrades exclaim, challenging Volcano to show his true strength. At that moment, a gigantic armored figure appears right in front of them and attacks, and one of them manages to shout Yuto's name. Luna shouts an alarm for everyone to be on guard as a massive object rapidly approaches them. The group jumps back in horror, trying to figure out where this new threat came from. Volcano slams his sword down hard, causing a powerful explosion. Rocks and dust fly in all directions, and the flash illuminates the street, causing everyone to instinctively cover their eyes. Kentaro notices his staff is broken and retreats in panic. Ryu shouts for Volcano to finish off his opponent, while the crowd around him freezes, watching the tense battle. The man then advises using a family heirloom and indestructible sword. The young man agrees, and the two charge, joining forces against the massive, armored foe. After the victory, the man praises Volcano for his excellent work. Volcano shyly thanks him, at a loss for words, and then, unable to hold back tears, confesses that he dreams with all his heart of becoming a true magician like his father. Then the man in the bow tie greets two colleagues in suits, asking how their performance went. Upon hearing their response, he happily declares the show a huge success and decides the format change was the right decision. After this, the first participant reassures the second, telling him there's no need to worry, nothing is lost. The second, meanwhile, reflects on their partner's success, but despite their joy, feels a little confused. Then the other man decides to offer more advice, and the other recalls how Volcano, his senpai, said he respected him. He adds that there's often a gap between what a person wants and what they're capable of. Kentaro listens attentively as the other man gently reminds him to keep his dream in his heart. He assures him that if he continues to work hard, he will surely achieve what he truly desires. Then Garland wipes his face at his name being called, and with feigned confidence declares himself the most powerful mage in the world. Against the backdrop of a shining sky, two figures stand motionless among the rocks, watching him. On a rocky plain, a group of people are busy with restoration work. One man apologizes to another, citing mistakes made during recent repairs, while the others watch their tense conversation with suspicion. Then the cheerful guy thanks everyone for saving Twelve, and the smiling woman jokingly asks if it's the devil's drool again. Another girl modestly admits that she was just running around, helping out as best she could. A woman with long silver hair approaches Garland and asks if he's had time to mend his clothes.
There's a hint of admiration and concern in her voice. Outside the Magic Academy, a nervous girl asks if Sakito-sama wanted to discuss something.
A boy standing nearby advises her to change first before rushing inside. Inside a room with a large window, two men stand opposite Garlando. One of them greets him warmly and says he's been looking forward to this meeting for a long time.
Kentaro thanks both of them for their efforts since yesterday's battle.
He considers whether it's appropriate to say good job after a battle, then turns to Garlando, wanting to express his special appreciation. He responds with sincere gratitude, overcome with emotion, and the girl next to him smiles. He quickly clarifies that he was the one who actually won, as if afraid his achievements would be forgotten. Then one of the men expresses gratitude for saving the city and unlocking Volcano's power. The other two bow respectfully, acknowledging the team's contribution to the victory.
Afterwards, one man admits he's ashamed he saw Volcano only as a mage, unaware of his other abilities. The second man warmly expresses his joy that the truth has finally been revealed, sadly adding that as a father and mentor, he didn't see more in his son. The girl and the young man react with surprise and shock to this. The young man, adjusting his vest, confidently agrees, and the older mentor begins to explain the details of the matter in a calm but firm voice. One of the men admires Volcano's strong build. The other admits he was deeply worried when he saw his condition the day before, thinking he had weakened after the battle. Then Luna, remembering, says that she herself has changed strangely during the magical training. The guy asks if the result was successful, and the girl replies with a smile that he really did give it his all. The young man admits he felt ashamed of not being a true mage, explaining he didn't intentionally hide anything.
The woman wonders why he even bothered to hide anything, while the other man praises him for his efforts and his father's recognition. Afterwards, Garland thanks everyone for the renewed robe and declares that he will continue the mage's path, guided by pride and duty. The others nod, accepting his words with respect and preparing to make their decisions.
Azran then asks if the others agree to take Volcano with them on their journey.
The young man, having realized his power thanks to Garlandono, declares that he now wants to become a great mage and continue the journey with them. Then the young man enthusiastically offers to join the journey, assuring her that his strength will definitely be useful. The older man calmly agrees, but asks to be shown what worlds exist, so that he can understand the essence of their journey. The man says he dreams of strong companions, and the girl happily agrees, while the boy gratefully thanks him for his trust. The second young man adds with a smile that Folka's company will make the journey much more enjoyable. Afterwards, someone thoughtfully asks whether Volcano is considered a battle mage or more of a warrior, as the line between those roles is blurred. He wonders how Yuto himself views him, as a mage ally or as a protector. Meanwhile, one of the men calls out to Zakito, asking if he's still there. Another greets the Chancellor, who announces he's arrived with a report. A third man calmly inquires about the latest developments. The man then explains that he was studying the material found in the remains of the defeated monster. He clarifies that it is a rare mineral, not found on the Shirjima continent, and hands over the samples at Zahito's request. A man with long dark hair adds that the creature likely came from another continent. These words surprise the three listeners, and one presumably mentions the name of the forest mage Yugusawa, as if recognizing the connection. Then a man with short blonde hair remarks that the attack looked like a sophisticated provocation. The other two discuss the possibility that an artifact or spell-blocking magic was used, although the mineral itself contains no anti-magic properties. Afterwards, the trio enthusiastically praises the magical team's strength, and the elderly man assures Lord Gabland that they will deal with the material they found. One of the participants cautiously asks if it's too dangerous. A man with short hair pauses at the door while the others decide to hand over the entire mineral to their master after the analysis is complete. One of them thanks the researcher and asks him to continue the investigation without delay. Then someone asks if the attack means the enemy wants not just to destroy the city, but to prepare for an invasion. The others listen attentively, unsure of what the mysterious sorcerer from the forest is trying to achieve. After the discussion, the man suggests heading to the castle library to seek an explanation for what's happening. The others approve of the idea and vow to do their utmost, even if it means fighting like they did during the invasion. The senior mage explains that the royal library contains thousands of ancient books, but finding the right one could take years or even decades. His words fill everyone with awe. Kentaro is stunned by the complexity of the task, while another man suggests the books may contain illegible ancient writings. He soon suggests seeking help from a sage living on the eastern edge of the continent, reputed to be 300 years old. Afterwards, they discuss a legendary elder who is said to be able to control all forms of magic. The group agrees that they should head to him, as only he might have the answers. When asked how long the journey will take, one of the men replies that it will take about 2 years to walk. In the background, two children exclaim joyfully, excited about the upcoming adventure. Kentaro then cries out in panic, outraged by the length of the journey. Ryu reassures him, saying that with the help of the magical horses, the journey will only take 6 months, and Celeste asks Garland to remain calm and not argue. Kentaro asks in surprise why the timelines match, to which Ryu explains that the time cycles are different here, 365 days pass differently. Kentaro slowly realizes this, amazed by the logic of this new world. Soon, Kentaro, Ryu, Celeste, and Miria watch an alarm as one of the men collapses, declaring he must return early. The girl, panicked, asks if this is related to that last year. Then the dark-haired man confesses that in the old world, he was an actor. He says that no one knows everything, and not everyone can understand what he's talking about. The fair-haired boy asks him with interest what he means. Kentaro looks at the three of them, 2 men and a woman, in confusion, as they exchange dumbfounded glances. One of them asks if the concept he just mentioned doesn't exist in their world. Then Kentaro calmly explains that a comedian is simply a person whose job is to bring smiles to others. The others listen with surprise and attention, as if they were considering such a simple yet important task for the first time. Kentaro sheepishly denies there's anything special about his profession, but his 2 companions fervently affirm that it's a wonderful and worthy pursuit. Celeste enthusiastically adds that Garland became an actor precisely to make people happy. Afterwards, Kentaro briefly reminisces about why he chose the path of a comedian. Just then, Ryu approaches him and welcomes him into the classroom, where he's sitting, engrossed in a book, seemingly oblivious to everything around him. One of the friends asks the other if he's home yet, offering to go ahead. The other replies that he needs to finish the book and return it to Kento, after which the other agrees to wait. Kentaro and Ryu are talking at school. Ryu asks if he's decided what he'll be after graduation, but Kentaro admits he has no plans to go to university, he doesn't have the money, and he's not likely to do well on the entrance exams, he says. Then one of them suggests teaming up and working together. The other admits he also wants to be a comedian, but is too lazy to go to college, so the idea seems tempting. Ryu enthusiastically declares that by forming a duet, they can achieve professional success and conquer the world. Kentaro agrees, recalling how their performance at the cultural festival was a huge success. The group recalls a festival where the audience applauded their skit enthusiastically. One is surprised at how easy it was, while the other adds with a smile that they were truly funny. Kentaro and his friend cheerfully discuss the future, laughing and dreaming of fame and fortune. One promises that once they become famous, they'll start flirting wildly, while Kentaro merely smiles wistfully, not sharing the same frivolity. 2 teenagers are sitting at desks near the school exit. One happily declares that he's going to hand in his resignation right now, while the other insists there's no need to quit school, as it's possible to become an actor without it. The man later recalls those days and reflects that he simply wanted to make people laugh. Then he wonders if he became a comedian for the sake of popularity, but immediately his friends greet him and wish him luck. The group asks Garland what last year means. He explains that the fastest way to travel in this city is by horse, so people have to return early, there's a major competition coming up. Kentaro suddenly remembers something useful while Ryu and Celeste are discussing her running speed, warning that Garland and he might not make it in time. At that moment, Kentaro reacts sharply, spotting a silhouette near the clock tower. He excitedly asks if teleportation magic could be used, recalling a mage who had recently used it. The other two are delighted with the idea, and Azran explains that the spell is too complex, but admits it's a brilliant idea. They then discuss a mage who specializes in teleportation within the Magic Brigade and decide to seek his help. After some time, the group approaches Jinga, a master of spatial magic. He greets Garland and confirms his readiness to listen to their request and assist with their travel. The young man clarifies that Jinga is the only teleporter in the brigade, and the others react with admiration. The dark-haired man quietly asks Garland a question, as if testing his intentions. He sheepishly denies that he's considering teleportation for personal reasons, such as his family. The woman asks, mildly reproachfully, if he's simply trying to make his life easier, and he quickly apologizes, assuring her that's not the case. Then the girl cheerfully declares that Garland is not at all like that, and the boy echoes this, saying that he is a sincere and noble man. The others nod approvingly, agreeing with their words. After this, Azran offers to help them master teleportation magic and begins explaining its basics. However, Miria suddenly jumps up, hurriedly apologizes, and runs out, leaving the group in tense anticipation. A man with long dark hair confirms that they are in the eastern part of the Shirjima continent. Another offers to explain how transition magic works, but the girl interrupts impatiently, saying that explanations will come later, now they need to hurry. Soon, the entire group is transfixed in awe as Azran activates a glowing magic circle. Kentaro, Ryu, and Miria exchange curious glances, while Celeste watches silently, her head tilted slightly in confusion. The woman warns that some people might feel dizzy after teleportation and asks if anyone is prone to motion sickness. The man quickly replies that everything is fine, but insists that it's time to get started quickly. Azran apologizes for the delay and orders them to act immediately, as the portal will close in a few seconds. The two men, recognizing the magical pattern, admiringly note that it is the same portal created by Master Jinga and praise his skill. The group enthusiastically agrees to begin. One thanks everyone for their assistance, after which they cautiously enter the dark portal tunnel, while in the distance a motionless figure watches them with cold calm. Azran then asks why Kentaro isn't coming with them. He sheepishly apologizes, explaining that he has other things to do. Azran advises caution, and Kentaro assures him that walking for 2 years is no problem. But when he adds that it's actually difficult, Azran frowns with concern. Suddenly, a scream is heard, and a man calls out in panic for Garland. A woman insists that he needs to leave immediately or else it will become dangerous, but someone else begs him not to run away until everything is cleared up. Azran stands, staff in hand, dumbfounded, seeing Kentaro and Celeste before him. Miria joyfully exclaims that the teleportation worked, and Ryu delightedly confirms that everything went perfectly. Kentaro points ahead to a tall tower covered in vines. Ryu enthusiastically declares that this is where the great sage resides, urging Garland to hurry. The girl suggests asking the great sage to use a transport spell to shorten the journey. 2 men listen to her, one reluctantly agrees, the other politely responds that it's a reasonable idea. Kentaro, Celeste, and Ryu walk across the vast plains, discussing how they themselves have never met the great sage, but have heard a lot about him and about Jelva-sama, the legendary magician of the East. The boy explains that Jelva-sama is considered the continent's greatest sage, known everywhere, though he rarely leaves his tower. The elf happily agrees, and the man listens silently, containing his excitement. He quietly wonders if the sage will help them if he turns out to be even stronger than they said. Their path leads to the massive gates of a majestic castle looming over the valley. The girl knocks on the door, noticing how huge it is, and adds that Galvus usually doesn't leave his tower, so he's probably inside. Her voice is faintly hopeful. Then she notices the door is unlocked and points it out. The men exchange glances, unsure whether to enter, and the woman wonders why no one has answered yet. The group notices a silhouette of a man in the distance. One of them whispers that he looks smart, while the other chuckles, saying that such behavior is quite typical. After all, someone is clearly watching nearby. Azran sternly reprimands the man who dared to enter the tower of the great Calvus Namiya without greeting or permission. The man quickly apologizes and, not hiding his agitation, says he is astonished by Azran's presence.
Volcano also apologizes for the sudden intrusion and asks if the man he met is Jelvis-sama's assistant.
Garland, in turn, introduces himself and adds that Yuto is a hunter accompanying him. The red-haired man explains that they have come to seek help from the great sage Jelvis. The silver-haired woman asks in surprise why all three have come, and the pink-haired girl apologizes for the long journey and insists that only the sage can help them. The man cautiously explains that Garland is actually lost between worlds, ending up here by accident. The other thanks him for the explanation and promises to try to figure it out himself, while the woman asks doubtfully, "Is this really another world?" A man explains that he found himself in another world without realizing it and now wants to use the power of a great sage to find a way to return home. His interlocutor listens silently, without interrupting, carefully observing his expression. Kentaro and his two companions joyfully react to the news of their meeting with the great sage. At that moment, a cloaked figure invites them to follow him to the sage's chambers, calling the event an amusing coincidence.
Azrin walks ahead with his usual restraint. Kentaro offers to carry his bag, but he politely declines, slightly embarrassed.
Miria, out of breath, admits that she needs to exercise more often to keep up. The group climbs a long staircase. One notices that it's all steps and not a single corridor, another is surprised by the lack of traps, expecting a trick. The girl, meanwhile, wonders with curiosity what kind of person Jelvis-sama will be and hopes he'll help them. Having reached the top, one of them anxiously notes that everything looks suspicious, like a trap. The other counters that it's too early to judge, the important thing now is to simply meet the tower's owner. Celeste, Kentaro, and Ryu enter a spacious library. Celeste excitedly explains that this is where the great sage resides. Miria doubts he's truly there, but a figure looms ahead in the shadows. The woman sitting on the throne calmly introduces herself as Great Sage Jelvis-Karna, the ruler of this tower and the keeper of the continent's knowledge.
The group is shocked to realize that the woman at the podium is Jelvis-sama.
They are surprised that she is already 300 years old, given that she appears youthful. She calmly replies that conventional age norms have no meaning in her world. Kentaro is astonished, and Ryu apologizes for initially mistaking Celeste for an assistant. Miria and Luna agree they were mistaken, too, after which Celeste and Ryu curiously discuss who is older, Kentaro or Ryu. The boy says he's 15, but the man doubts it and remarks that he acts much older. He jokes that there must be something wrong with age in this world. The girl admits she's never counted exactly, but she thinks she's about 20. The conversation mentions the long-lived races of Geralfrad. One man sharply addresses the sage with a question, and she calmly asks what exactly he wants.
The man anxiously asks her to use teleportation magic.
Jelvis calmly replies that it's not her specialty and beyond her abilities. Kentaro cries out in despair that everything is lost, startling Ryu, who asks if it's Garland speaking. Celeste calmly explains that fulfilling their request will take at least 2 years before they can return home. The silver-haired woman accepts the situation with restraint, while the others rush and remind her that this is her last year. They decide to put the matter aside for now, focusing on returning to Garland. She takes the staff in her teeth and asks with a grin if they're really so worried about the fact that she doesn't have teleportation magic. There's a hint of challenge in her voice. Suddenly, the hall begins to tremble with ripples of magical energy. The men exchange worried glances, and she declares the situation grave. Then, raising her staff, she summons a powerful spirit, commanding it to answer her call. Everyone is transfixed in awe when a female figure emerges from the water's radiance. One explains that spirit magic requires colossal power and utilizes the elements, just as fire magic feeds on flame. The girl excitedly adds that spirits take on a form dependent on who controls their power, and the more mana, the more powerful the spell. The young man listens, visibly nervous, but doesn't look away. The woman then sternly warns that if she were to intervene seriously, she could make them disappear in an instant. The woman quickly denies this, insisting she never meant anything of the sort. Azrin confidently declares that his magical power allows him to fear no enemy, and therefore there is no need for traps in the tower.
Kentaro quickly apologizes, claiming he didn't mean to hurt anyone.
Azrin advises him to be more careful in his actions and words in this world, and although Kentaro is irritated, he promises to discuss the matter seriously with Garland.
Azrin calmly explains that to find clues leading to their return home, they need to go to the castle's ancient library. He warns that many of the books will be unreadable due to the ancient script, and asks the others to help decipher it. The two participants enthusiastically ask Azrin to join their journey, but he firmly refuses, saying that he has his own responsibilities and cannot leave the tower. In the office, the man at the desk calmly declines the offer, explaining that he sees no benefit in their story. Those standing nearby react with surprise and pepper him with questions, trying to understand his motives. The cloaked woman asks a direct question: what's the point or benefit of traveling with Garland Nono? Then she adds that the boy's goal is to develop his own abilities. The girl next to him quietly agrees, without looking up. The man in the loose robe calmly replies that he doesn't intend to participate out of charity. The other insists that a visit to the ancient royal library can yield new knowledge, even if there's no guarantee of success. The woman dismisses his words with irritation, dismissing them as meaningless, but is unable to verify their veracity. The man, however, offers to accompany Garland to learn more about other worlds. A third party intervenes peacefully, acknowledging that their request may be too intrusive. Kentaro reacts painfully when someone criticizes him for his lack of charisma and inner light, claiming he's too inconspicuous to inspire others. A look of resentment creeps into his eyes, but he restrains himself. The girl stutters sheepishly when mentioning his appearance, and the disheveled man apologizes, admitting he's aware of his lack of expression. The woman, irritated, adds that Garland could at least drink the devil's spit. A man with short dark hair replays the words about not having an aura in his head. Meanwhile, another man thanks someone for a job well done, and a third quietly enters the room, as if not wanting to interrupt the conversation. Kentaro secretly watches the footage and finds it genuinely funny. He thanks Hideki Koba for his work and praises him for his clever use of criticism and the joke's structure. Kentaro happily announces that he's placed 7th and thanks the audience for their support. The man in the hat admits that he's having a hard time getting votes and that today didn't go as planned. The bespectacled man remarks that Shining Hunter lacks charm, causing the man to ask in surprise what he means by charm. A young man asks a man sitting at the table how he can add charm to his performances. The man explains that charm is a kind of aura that emanates from a person, although, in his opinion, this concept is somewhat overrated. The man in glasses continues his reasoning, saying that people with charm seem to glow from within, attracting attention like an artist stepping into the spotlight with a starry glow. The interviewees discuss how comedians develop their charm in different ways. Some are born with it, others acquire it suddenly, and still others lose it over time. Generally, the greater the skill, the more pronounced this inner light becomes. A man in glasses offers a metaphor: charm is like gold and silvered. Gold shines brighter when polished, while silver glows softer but with a constant warmth. Another jokes that, fortunately, this isn't a Pokemon analogy. The dark-haired man asks what category his interlocutor considers himself to be in. The bespectacled man confidently declares himself a silver. After all, it's precisely those types of people who become appreciated years later, when their brilliance no longer blinds but lingers. Two young men discuss how Hideki can become a joke writer, as it takes time and charm. One adds that successful screenwriters are always rich because they know how to sell emotions. The girl and boy are struck by the charisma of the other two participants. Garland, with a slight smile, assures them that everything is fine, while a man nearby respectfully addresses Galvas-sama, noting her calm. She calmly declares that she is ready to return to her world. The man, however, doubts that even if they follow her, they will gain anything in return, as not every journey brings profit. He then passionately declares that he's willing to do whatever it takes if she agrees to go with him. The woman responds calmly, considering what exactly she should do, and notes that any agreement comes with conditions. At that moment, Azrin becomes wary, noticing something odd, and notices that they seem to have been joined by unwelcome guests. The two men exchange surprised glances, while Azrin stands by a table littered with books and magical items. At the foot of a tall stone tower, from which smoke billows, an entire army of skeletons forms. They stand tense, as if awaiting orders, but soon begin to move, startled by the sudden event. Kentaro angrily demands an explanation for what's going on, while Celeste remains calm and reminds him that the tower has been attacked before. She adds that it appears they've been targeted again. Azrin grimly notes that accompanying her wasn't her condition at all.
Meanwhile, the others survey the field in front of the tower in horror, astonished by the sheer number of skeletons filling the horizon.
Azrin asks coldly if they can at least temporarily get rid of this trash.
One of the men nearby desperately objects, claiming there are too many of them and that such a number of enemies is impossible to deal with.